A brand new 150 horsepower outboard now costs more than most used cars, over $18,000 before you even bolt it to your transom. But here is what the marine industry does not want you to know. Right now, some of the most reliable engines ever built are sitting on Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist for under $5,000. Engines that commercial fishermen bet their lives on. Engines that mechanics call unkillable. And I am going to show you 7 of them. But I have to warn you, number 1 on this list is not Yamaha. It is not Mercury. It is not Honda. It is a brand most American boaters have never even considered. And when you find out why mechanics recommend it over engines twice its price, everything you thought you knew about outboards is going to change. Before we dive in, hit subscribe and tap that bell so you never miss another investigation. Now let me ask you something. Drop your answer in the comments. What is the oldest outboard you have ever owned? And is it still running? Because by the end of this video, you might be hunting for one just like it. Let me start with where these engines are coming from, because understanding the market explains why this is the best time in years to buy a used outboard. Between 2020 and 2025, the marine industry went through a transformation that punished buyers. Outboard prices rose by over 40%. A 150 horsepower engine that cost $12,000 in 2019 cost $18,000 by 2025. Supply chain failures during the pandemic created backlogs that lasted years. Tariffs on imported components added thousands to manufacturing costs. And unprecedented demand from first-time boat buyers during the COVID boom gave manufacturers permission to raise prices without consequences. But something else happened during this period that the industry does not talk about openly. Quality control slipped. Warranty claims rose across multiple brands. Forums filled with stories of brand new engines failing within their first season. Fuel injection systems malfunctioning. Electronic control modules dying without warning. Dealers scrambling to find replacement parts that were back-ordered for months. The boats that sold during the COVID boom are now coming back to market. Owners who bought during the frenzy are desperate to sell boats they cannot afford to keep. Marina fees increased. Insurance premiums spiked. Fuel costs doubled. And suddenly, that dream boat became a financial anchor dragging families underwater. This collision of factors has flooded the used market with options. Engines that sold for $8,000 2 years ago are now available for under $5,000. The problem is that many of them are cheap for a reason. Deferred maintenance, hidden corrosion, electrical failures waiting to happen. The key is knowing which engines were already reliable before the market crashed. Here is what most buyers do not understand about outboard reliability. The engines built before the 2010 EPA emissions overhaul were fundamentally different machines. They were simpler, more overbuilt, designed for longevity over compliance. Modern outboards must meet strict emission standards, which requires complex fuel injection systems, catalytic components, and electronic engine management. These systems improve efficiency and reduce pollution, but they also introduce failure points that did not exist in older designs. The older engines are easier to repair. Parts are abundant because they were produced in massive quantities over long production runs. And if you know what to look for, they are everywhere. Sitting in garages, listed on marketplace apps, collecting dust at marine consignment shops. For this investigation, I did not rely on brand loyalty or advertising budgets. I consulted independent marine mechanics who have no financial stake in pushing one brand over another. I spoke with commercial fleet operators who measure reliability in thousands of hours, not weekend trips. I reviewed repair data from aggregators who track failure rates across engine families. Reliability in this context means 3 things. First, how many hours can the engine run before requiring major internal work? Second, how available and affordable are replacement parts when something does fail? And third, how forgiving is the design when maintenance gets delayed? Because in the real world, maintenance gets delayed. Life happens. And a reliable engine is one that survives imperfect ownership. With that framework established, let me walk you through 7 outboards that meet these criteria. Engines with proven track records available right now for under $5,000. These are not project motors requiring complete rebuilds. These are engines you can buy, maintain with basic care, and expect to run for years. Starting at number 7 is the most overlooked pick on this list, the Suzuki DT Series 2-strokes from 1985 to 2000. Specifically the DT55, DT65, and DT85. You will find them in the $1,800 to $30,500 range, and most American buyers scroll right past them. In the 1980s, Suzuki was not trying to dominate the American market. They were trying to survive it. Competing against Mercury, Johnson, and Yamaha meant one thing: build cheaper and tougher, or disappear. The DT series was Suzuki's answer. Simple loop-charged 2-stroke architecture. No oil injection on early models, which means you mixed your own fuel, which means fewer failure points. Cast iron cylinder liners instead of aluminum. Forged crankshafts designed to handle abuse. These were not racing engines built for magazine reviews. They were workhorses built for people who could not afford breakdowns. In Southeast Asian commercial fishing fleets, where reliability is not a preference, but survival, the DT series is still a common sight today. One marine mechanic in Louisiana told me he has seen DT65s come in with 3,000 hours on them. You rebuild the powerhead for $600 and you have got another decade of service. Parts are getting harder to find in North America. Carburetors can be finicky when neglected, and the fuel economy is, let us call it vintage. But if you are on a tight budget, near a port with access to Asian parts suppliers, and you do not mind mixing oil yourself, the Suzuki DT is a hidden gem hiding in plain sight. At number 6 is the Mercury and Mariner 2-stroke from the Lightning Bolt era, specifically the 40 to 60 horsepower models built between 1987 and 2006. Expect to pay $2,000 to $4,000 depending on condition and hours. Here is a truth Mercury's modern marketing department would rather you forget. Their best-selling engines were not the high-tech 4-strokes with digital displays and smartphone connectivity. They were the old 2-strokes, millions of them, powering bass boats, aluminum skiffs, and pontoons across America for 2 solid decades. The 40 and 50 horsepower 2-stroke Mercs from the late 80s through early 2000s are textbook examples of mature design. No unnecessary electronics. Proven ignition systems that mechanics understand completely, and a parts network so deep you can find replacements at almost any marina in the country. One charter captain in the Florida Keys runs 3 of them on his fleet. His words: "I have tried the new stuff. It is fast and quiet. But when it breaks, I am down for a week waiting on a dealer. With the old Mercs, I fix it myself the same day. Corrosion is the enemy on these engines. Saltwater examples need careful inspection of the powerhead and lower unit." The oil-injected models can develop VRO pump failures if the system was neglected. When evaluating one, check compression numbers across all cylinders. You want above 110 psi, with no more than 10% variation between cylinders. Make sure the lower unit shifts smoothly and is not grinding or whining. If those check out, you have found an engine that can run another 20 years. At number 5 is the Johnson and Evinrude V4 and V6 from the Crossflow and Looper eras. These were built between 1978 and 1998, and they run $20,500 to $4,500 today. Before BRP's troubled fished and E-Tech experiments of the 2000s, there was an era when Evinrude and Johnson made some of the most reliable big outboards in the world. The Crossflow V4s and V6 from the late 70s through the 90s are still running strong, if you know where to look. The Looper engines, named for their loop-charged intake design, were an improvement on the Crossflow combustion architecture. They offered better fuel efficiency and cleaner burns. But even the older Crossflows, with their simplicity and overbuilt internals, have logged extraordinary hours on commercial vessels across the Great Lakes and Gulf Coast. A Great Lakes fishing guide sent me photos of his 1988 Evinrude 150, still on the original powerhead. Over 4,000 hours logged. He told me he has replaced the water pump impellers regularly and swapped out a few ignition components over the years. That is it. No major internal work in nearly 4 decades of commercial use. Electrical gremlins are common in high-hour examples of these engines. Power packs fail. Stators wear out. But the parts are affordable and the repairs are well documented across dozens of online forums and YouTube tutorials. This is the engine that built American bass fishing. The engine that powered tournament circuits for a generation. And in 2026, it is priced like a secret nobody remembers. At number 4, we step into 4-stroke territory with the Honda BF series, specifically the BF75, BF90, and BF115, built between 1999 and 2012. These run $3,500 to $5,000, and finding one under budget requires patience and timing. When Honda entered the marine market, they did not try to reinvent the outboard. They did what Honda always does: over-engineer the product, obsess over tolerances that competitors consider unnecessary, and let the product speak for itself through decades of service. The BF series introduced automotive-grade machining to the marine world. Lean burn technology that competitors would not match for years. Variable valve timing on some models, similar to the VTEC systems that made Honda motorcycles and cars legendary. And corrosion-resistant alloys originally developed for motorcycles, sold in Southeast Asia's brutal monsoon climates. Honda outboards hold their resale value better than almost any other brand on the water. There is a reason for that, and it is not marketing. One California mechanic who specializes in outboard diagnostics told me he sees Yamahas, Mercs, Suzukis, and they are all good engines, but Hondas come in with 2,500 hours on the meter, and the bearings still feel factory fresh. The tolerances are simply tighter, from the beginning. Parts are more expensive than comparable Japanese brands. Honda's marine dealer network is smaller than Yamaha or Mercury, which can mean longer waits for specialty components. And DIY repairs require metric tooling and more patience than most weekend mechanics possess. But if you can find a well-maintained BF90 or BF115 under $5,000, and they do exist if you watch the market carefully, you have found a motor that may never need a rebuild. At number 3, we arrive at legendary territory. The Yamaha 2-stroke Enduro series. Specifically the 40 to 60 horsepower models built between 1991 and 2008. These run $2,500 to $4,200, and they represent something unique in outboard history. In developing nations where boats are not weekend hobbies but daily transportation and economic survival, one name dominates the waterfront: Yamaha Enduro. Built specifically for commercial and high-abuse environments, the Enduro series was designed from the ground up to survive conditions that would destroy a recreational engine in months. Overbuilt crankshafts with larger bearing surfaces than standard models, manual tilt as standard equipment, which eliminates the hydraulic systems that fail when seals deteriorate. Corrosion-resistant coatings applied in Japanese factories with quality control processes that bordered on obsessiveness. These engines were sold across Africa, Southeast Asia, and South America, with the explicit expectation that they would run for decades without access to authorized service centers or factory-trained technicians. One import dealer in Texas has built a business around Enduro-spec Yamahas pulled from Mexican commercial fleets. He told me that people dismiss these engines because they look rough on the outside, sun-faded cowlings, surface corrosion on external hardware, but the internals are immaculate. These engines were run 10 hours a day, every single day, and they are still going strong. Desantions. Enduro-spec models lack some creature comforts that American recreational boaters expect. Electric start is not always included on smaller horsepower versions. Finding authentic Enduro examples in the United States can require research into import channels and commercial fishing liquidations. But this is the engine built for the world's harshest operating conditions. waters where breakdown means financial ruin or worse. And at under $4,000, it is arguably the best value in outboard history. At number 2 is the Yamaha F-Series 4-stroke, specifically the F70, F90, and F115, built between 2002 and 2015. These run $3,800 to $5,000, and demand stays consistently high. If the Enduro represents Yamaha's commitment to durability in harsh conditions, the F-Series represents their mastery of modern 4-stroke engineering. These were the engines that finally convinced American anglers that 4-strokes could be light, powerful, and reliable all at once. Before the F-Series, 4-strokes carried a reputation for being heavy, sluggish, and complicated. Yamaha changed that perception permanently. The F-Series pioneered compact 4-stroke architecture that competitors spent years trying to replicate. Yamaha's engineers reduced weight without sacrificing low-end torque, solving a problem that had plagued 4-stroke designs since their introduction to the outboard market. The F90 in particular became the default choice for serious inshore and bay boat owners who needed reliability without compromise. Forum data from the Hull Truth, Boat Design Net, and the Yamaha Outboard Owners Group tells a consistent story. The 2002 to 2015 F-Series ranks as the most trusted used 4-stroke platform on the market. Threads documenting failures are rare. Posts titled "Still Running Strong After 15 Years" are everywhere. In a 2024 survey of certified Yamaha technicians across North America, over 78% identified the F90 and F115 as the most bulletproof 4-strokes they have ever serviced. High demand means prices stay firm, even in a flooded used market. Clean examples under $5,000 sell quickly, often within days of listing. Expect to pay premium prices for engines with documented service history and low hours. The Yamaha F-Series is not a secret. It is a standard against which other engines are measured. But if you find one under budget with maintenance records, do not hesitate. It will not last long. And here is number 1, the pick that is going to make brand loyalists question everything they thought they knew about outboard value. Tohatsu 2-strokes and 4-strokes in the 40 to 90 horsepower range, built between 1998 and 2016. You will find them for $1,500 to $4,000, sometimes even less. Here is the secret the marine industry does not advertise in glossy magazine spreads or boat show displays. For decades, one company has quietly built engines for multiple major brands, including Mercury, Nissan Marine, and several others. That company is Tohatsu. And the engines carrying their own badge are often identical to their more expensive counterparts at half the price. Tohatsu is Japan's oldest outboard manufacturer, founded in 1922. While they never built a dominant American brand presence or sponsored fishing tournaments, they became the OEM of choice for major labels looking to fill gaps in their product lineups. Mercury's entire portable 4-stroke range under 60 horsepower, Tohatsu built in Japanese factories. Nissan Marine outboards sold across global markets, rebadged Tohatsus with different decals. What this means for used buyers is profound. A 2010 Tohatsu 50 horsepower 4-stroke and a 2010 Mercury 50 E5 4-stroke share the same engine block, the same internal components, the same engineering specifications. They rolled off the same assembly line in the same factory. But the Tohatsu sells for 30 to 40% less on the used market because the badge does not carry the same marketing prestige. One independent mechanic in British Columbia who has serviced over 1,200 outboards across his 30-year career told me something that stuck with me. He said when a customer asks what to buy outboard, he tells them Tohatsu every single time. Same guts as the big brands. Half the ego, half the price. He has no financial incentive to push Tohatsu. He makes the same hourly rate regardless of what brand sits on his stand. But he has seen enough engines torn apart to know where the real value lives. Commercial prawn fisheries along the Canadian Pacific coast run entire fleets of Tohatsu-powered skiffs. These are not hobbyists making weekend trips. These are businesses where downtime means lost income. They do not care about brand cachet or what logos look impressive at the marina. They care about uptime, parts availability, and cost per hour of operation. And the Tohatsu delivers on all three metrics. Parts cross-compatibility with Mercury portables means availability is never an issue, even in remote locations. Fuel systems, water pumps, lower unit components, ignition parts, all interchangeable between Tohatsu-badged and Mercury-badged versions of the same engine. Your local Mercury dealer can service a Tohatsu without knowing the difference internally. The used market for Tohatsus is smaller than Yamaha or Mercury, so finding examples requires patience and persistent searching. Resale value runs lower than equivalent branded engines, though that discount is exactly why buying used makes sense. Brand recognition remains limited among American recreational boaters, which matters if you plan to sell the engine later. But if you are buying to use rather than buying to impress, number 1 earns its place. So there you have it. 7 outboards you can buy for under $5,000 that will actually prove reliable over years of service. The Suzuki DT series for budget two-stroke simplicity when cost matters most. The Mercury and Mariner Lightning Bolt era for proven American parts, availability, and decades of documented reliability. The Johnson and Evinrude V4 and V6 for legendary big block power that built tournament bass fishing. The Honda BF series for automotive-grade engineering and tolerances that outlast everything else on the water. The Yamaha Enduro for commercial-grade durability tested in the world's harshest operating conditions. The Yamaha F series for modern four-stroke excellence that set the standard competitors still chase. And Tohatsu for the best overall value in the outboard industry, hiding in plain sight. If you are shopping for a used outboard, do not buy based on brand reputation or how clean the cowling looks in photos. Buy based on compression numbers, documented service history, and fundamental design philosophy. Get a compression test on any engine you consider seriously. Each cylinder should read within 10% of the others. Cold, start the engine before purchase. An engine that fires easily when cold tells you more than one. Warmed up by a motivated seller. Check lower unit oil for milky discoloration indicating water intrusion. Budget $200 to $400 annually for basic maintenance regardless of which engine you choose. There is a lesson in this list that extends beyond outboards. In every industry, the most reliable products are not always the most advertised. They are often built by engineers who were not chasing headlines or marketing awards. Companies that survived not by disrupting markets, but by serving them quietly, year after year, decade after decade. The Tohatsu powering a commercial skiff does not know it shares DNA with engines wearing famous badges. The Yamaha Enduro running water taxis in the Philippines does not know American marketers consider it obsolete technology. These engines just run. Day after day, season after season. That is what reliability actually means. As manufacturers push toward digital systems and software-dependent designs, one question lingers. Will the next generation of outboards be this repairable? Is this durable? Is this honest? Or will the best motors ever built already be behind us?